President not hesitating tonight to point the finger of blame for the deadly disaster at his Democratic predecessors and their DEI policies. Let's bring in licensed pilot and Los Angeles County Aviation Commissioner Christina Pascucci, Fox News contributor Steve Hilton, and the author of What's Killing America, Seattle Talk Radio host Jason Rantz. Jason, to you first. I mean, look, the president might be right. Maybe woke policies did contribute to this accident. We don't know that. I think the question is, should that be left to the investigation? Is this the time to bring it up? What do you think?
So I thought the first half was great. I thought he spoke thoughtfully, passionately, and really hit home the emotions that so many people were feeling in the aftermath of this, and really was focused on the victims' families. But then, unfortunately, I think he got into the DEI stuff way too fast. If he was asked a question about this, that would be one thing. But he decided to be proactive about it, and I just don't think it came off the way that he had hoped. And I think it overshadowed everything that he had done up until that point that I thought was so incredibly effective. It just was the wrong place, even if his policies are better and even if his position on this is reasonable. It's not like any of us disagree with the DEI nonsense. It was just the timing of it I don't think was appropriate.
And Steve Hilton, to you, the president clearly always says what's on his mind. And, you can say it's not the time for it, but mistakes were made. And it cost 67 lives,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes, and honestly, Trace, this really reminds me of something we've been talking a lot about in the last few weeks. Another disaster that claimed lives, not on exactly this scale, but if you put them together, just in the last month, over 100 Americans have died. Both these situations, the crash now and the wildfires in LA, they both look as if they are the result, the scale of it, from incompetence, policy failure going back years. And yes, it is Democrat policy failure in both cases. And if you look at the FAA, even the Inspector General back in 2023 in June, a scathing report about how it's been mismanaged and understaffed, and over in some of the locations in the country, over 65% nearly of the people in air traffic control are trainees. It's a total mess, and it became a mess under the last administration. It's totally appropriate to say so, just as when it was in the LA wildfires, people, yes, were anxious and grieving and all the loss, but they were also angry.
Yep, and it's a good point. You're a pilot, Christina, and getting out of the politics aside, if you were in one of those aircraft, piloting one of those aircraft, you would have wanted more information coming into you.
Yeah, a big part of the problem was a split frequency. So the air traffic controller knew what was going on with both pilots in each aircraft. But the problem was a regional jet pilot probably didn't hear the frequency that the Black Hawk pilot was on, and so didn't have full situational awareness. And obviously that is hugely problematic, especially when you consider the whole other onslaught of issues with the altitude potentially being the wrong altitude for the helicopter, for, being hard to see at night when the city lights kind of look like maybe the aircraft lights. It's just much harder. Were the night vision goggles on? We don't know. Also, did the Black Hawk pilot see the wrong air traffic?
Right.
So many questions still.
Yeah, a lot of questions. Meantime, now to the confirmation hearings. To you, Jason. Maggie Hassan said this during the RFK hearing. Watch.
When you continue to sow doubt about settled science, it makes it impossible for us to move forward. So that's what the problem is here. It's the relitigating and rehashing and continuing to sow doubt so we can't move forward, and it freezes us in place.
3 years ago, Jason, they fired people because the COVID vaccines in their mind was settled science. You hear settled science, you're like, please.
Yeah, I think that's entirely correct. I think the strategy of just attacking, not letting him respond, pretending that he didn't answer a question, and then yelling and attacking again, just is going to blow up in their face. I think there's some valid criticism of some of the comments RFK has made in the past. I think it's totally relevant when you bring those questions up, but you have to do it in a good faith way. You have to actually allow him to answer, and they did neither of those things. And that's why I think ultimately people probably watched this and sided with RFK Jr., even if they went into it a little bit skeptical of maybe some of his past positions.
Yeah, we played a little bit of this in the intro to the show, Steve, but I wanted to play it for you because this is the Senate. These are his ex-friends not allowing him to answer the questions. Watch.
something a jury might be impressed by. You could appoint people to the CDC vaccine panel who share your anti-vax views and let them do your dirty work. So that what you do as secretary will also benefit you financially down the line.
I'll comply with all the ethical guidelines.
That's not the question.
You're just a rubber stamp for them in this position? So anybody,
Trump.
so if it really is fundamental to what you believe, how do you live with that? How do you address those issues as you're moving forward?
You want me to
knowing
answer
that
the
it's going to
question,
harm
Senator?
Americans? Yeah.
You want me to answer the question?
You would think they would. You would think they would want answers. You would think that they would not put politics over what they believe is best for the country.
Honestly, all these hearings, actually, and they seem to be getting worse. The main casualty, if you like, is not the people they're trying to take down, these nominees of President Trump. It's the senators themselves. They just make themselves look like such pompous. Well, I'm not going to use. I'm not going to curse on your show and get you into trouble. But they're so pompous and just these ridiculous, grandstanding speeches. And it's all about them and the intention that they want, rather than actually doing their job. Which is, by the way, not to push their policy disagreements. That was settled in the election. President Trump won. The policy disagreements are irrelevant. It's purely, is he qualified? They should limit their questions to that. Of course, they can't help themselves because they're pompous politicians.
Yeah, RFK talking about his former friends. Christina, watch.
And all these Democrats are opposed to me for partisan issues. They used to be my friends. Now they're against me because anything that President Trump does, any decision he makes, has to be lampooned, derided, discredited, marginalized, vilified.
Old friends.
Look, no matter how you feel about RFK, the faux outrage from politicians during these hearings is absolutely stunning. I'm a mother of a 10-month-old child. I have to work so hard to not poison my daughter. Where was that outrage when half of our kids in America developed chronic disease? When red dye was put into children's medication, that's a carcinogen. They have corn syrup, which causes a whole slew of issues. We have food and chemicals in this country that are banned in other countries. Where has that outrage been the last few decades as all of that happened and we became one of the sickest developed countries on the planet? It's completely unacceptable, and I'd like to see them put, actually come to the moment and create a law that will save and protect Americans.
Christina, Steve, Jason, thank you all. Coming up, Cash Patel.